Imagine if AI could help rangers stop poachers before they strike. If it could tell factories exactly how to prevent food waste and steer ships and even cities onto lower carbon paths. Well, these systems are already running in forests, kitchens, oceans, and smart cities around the world. In this video, we're going to look at real examples of how AI is helping restore nature, protect wildlife, cut food waste, clean up recycling, and even enable communication with animals. And yes, we're going to look at the risks and what it would take for AI to be an actual climate solution, not just another expensive tech toy. I'm Grant, and this is Happy Eco News. So let's start in the wild. Conservation scientists have a big data problem. Every year, they take millions of camera trap photos, but most of them are empty and they don't have enough people to sort through them. That's where Wildlife Insights, a digital platform from the World Wildlife Fund, comes in. It uses Google's AI to automatically scan camera images to identify species. They're now processing tens of millions of photos from places like the Amazon and the Congo Basin. That means researchers can go from "we'll get to this in a few years" to "we can spot population trends this season." On the anti-poaching side, projects like PAWS, Protection Assistant for Wildlife Security, use machine learning models trained on past poaching incidents, terrain, and access routes to predict exactly where poachers are most likely to strike next. Rangers in Uganda and Cambodia have used PAWS to plan smarter patrols instead of just walking the same routes over and over again. AI is also moving into restoration. Instead of picking restoration sites by gut feeling, new tools layer soil data, hydrology, land use, and climate projections to find the spots where rewilding will have the biggest ecological impact. Case studies describe AI models automatically mapping degraded wetlands so that restoration teams know exactly where to reconnect water flows or replant native vegetation. So AI is already helping answer three huge questions in conservation. What species are here? Where are they most at risk? And where will restoration do the most good? But what if AI could help us understand not just where animals are, but what they're actually saying? The Earth Species Project is training large AI models on massive libraries of animal sounds like birds, whales, and primates to look for structure and patterns in their communication. In one published result, their models correctly identified species they had never been explicitly trained on, solely from acoustic patterns. Researchers are using machine learning to cluster and classify animal calls, moving from the basic "here's a sound" to "this is a distress call" or even "this is a mating call," and eventually to understand context and maybe even what they're communicating. On the consumer side, several companies are experimenting with AI pet translators that classify dog barks or cat meows into likely emotional states like stressed, playful, or anxious by combining sound with body language. These are early and sometimes a bit gimmicky, but the same techniques could eventually be used for real animal welfare monitoring in farms and shelters. So no, we're not having full conversations with dolphins yet, but for the first time, tools exist that can scale beyond what any human analyst could ever listen to. Next up is food. AI is being used to create more sustainable foods and prevent food waste in the first place. Chilean food company Notco built an AI system called Giuseppe that maps plant ingredients to the flavor and texture of animal products. It discovered combinations like cabbage and pineapple that, when processed correctly, can mimic milk, leading to products like not milk, not burger, not chicken. Products now sold in supermarkets and fast food chains across the Americas. Another company, Live Green Co., uses AI on a database of over 15,000 plants to replace synthetic and animal ingredients with plant alternatives. Their platform has already been used to formulate plant-only ice creams and meat alternatives with short, all-plant ingredient lists. In Canada, a tech incubator called Protein Industries of Canada reports that agri-food companies are using AIs to screen large combinations of processing methods and grains to develop high-protein plant ingredients, accelerating innovative protein innovation. On the waste side, an AI tool from Zest ran a trial at a Nestle factory in the UK. By analyzing production data, it cut edible food waste by 87% in just 2 weeks, the equivalent of about 1.5 million meals and 1,400 tons of CO2 if scaled across the year. In restaurants and hotels, Dutch company Orbis mounts an AI-enabled camera over the waste bin. Every time food is thrown away, the system recognizes what it is and how much it weighs. Kitchens then get dashboards showing exactly which dishes and ingredients are regularly wasted. Many report double-digit cuts in food waste after adjusting purchasing and menus. A company called LeanPath does something similar in institutional kitchens, like universities, hospitals, and corporate cafeterias. Studies show clients typically cut food waste by 30 to 50% using AI-supported tracking and recommendations. So AI is pushing on both ends of the food system. It helps create better plant-based options and makes sure that the food we grow doesn't go straight into the bin. Now let's talk trash and cities. Traditional recycling relies heavily on manual sorting, which is slow, expensive, and often inaccurate. Companies like AMP Robotics deploy AI-powered robots in recycling facilities. Using computer vision and sensors, each robot can identify and grab up to 80 items per minute, with targeted recovery rates around 80 to 90%. That allows facilities to process more material with higher purity, making recycling financially viable for more types of waste. In cities, AI is being embedded into smart waste systems. Singapore and other smart cities use sensor-equipped bins and AI-optimized routes, so trucks collect only when bins are close to full. This means fewer kilometers driven, less fuel burned, and fewer overflowing bins. Zooming out to smart cities more broadly, places like Singapore, Copenhagen, and Seoul are all using AI to manage everything from energy to traffic and district heating. AI-powered digital twins of districts and buildings simulate how changes in heating, cooling, and ventilation will affect energy use and comfort. Then they automatically adjust systems to save energy while keeping people comfortable. So when people talk about AI-powered cities, it's not flying cars or teleporters. It's lots of small, practical optimizations that add up at scale. But what about how we move around? Researchers in Germany's Dakimo project built an AI system for multimodal route planning, basically planning trips that combine buses, trains, bikes, and walking. In trials, about 20% of surveyed users said they would leave their car at home more often when they had AI-based predictions and better information about shared and public transport. Companies like PTV Group use AI to forecast congestion and adjust traffic lights in real time. In the city of Essen, these tools are combined with emissions calculations to reroute traffic and optimize signal timing, reducing CO2 and emissions rather than just focusing on travel time. On top of that, navigation apps can now recommend more efficient driving routes and driving styles. When integrated with EV charging networks, they can steer charging to times when chargers are available, when grid electricity is cleaner and even cheaper for the user. Individually, these changes might feel small, but at the city scale, shaving a few percent off of a person's everyday transport emissions adds up to a big deal. Global shipping is the backbone of trade and a major source of emissions. Some estimates say that 90% of everything is produced with materials transported by ocean-going ships. AI-driven route optimization now analyzes weather, currents, ship performance, and port congestion to constantly update the most fuel-efficient route. One documented case reports around a 12% reduction in fuel use and a 15% cut in CO2 emissions after a shipping company implemented the route planning across its entire fleet. Companies like Cetasol offer AI systems that sit on the vessel and monitor engine performance and operating conditions in real time. The software then recommends optimal speed and engine settings to keep the ship in its most efficient operating range, helping owners meet International Maritime Organization climate targets while saving on fuel costs. WhaleSpotter AI-powered whale detection for ships uses thermal imaging to spot whales up to 3 nautical miles away and alerts crews within seconds to prevent collisions. Other marine platforms use AI for slow steaming strategies and just-in-time arrivals. If a ship can arrive exactly when a berth is free rather than idling outside port for hours or days, both emissions and costs drop. Again, it's about turning a very conservative, carbon-intensive industry into one that can actually measure and manage its emissions. Now, this story wouldn't be complete without talking about one of the biggest players in AI, Google. Google's Flood Hub uses AI to forecast river floods up to 7 days in advance. It now covers 80 countries and around 460 million people, combining hydrologic model, which is how much water is actually in a river, with an inundation model that predicts the actual areas that will flood. In countries like India and Bangladesh, Google has partnered with local agencies and the World Meteorological Organization to send targeted flood alerts directly to people's mobile phones. Early case studies suggest these warnings have helped communities evacuate in time and avoid the worst impacts of floods. On the natural side, Google has worked with groups like World Wildlife Fund on wildlife insights, using computer vision to accelerate biodiversity monitoring. Its tree canopy tool uses AI and aerial imagery to map urban tree cover and urban heat islands. Currently, it helps nearly 350 cities plan where to plant trees to protect vulnerable communities. So beyond Google's core product of internet search, there's a growing set of AI tools quietly aimed at climate adaptation and nature protection. Of course, there's a big caveat. AI itself uses energy. Training and running large models consume a huge amount of electricity and water for cooling their massive data centers. Researchers and international climate bodies have warned that AI needs to run on increasingly clean power and be deployed where it genuinely reduces emissions or improves resilience. The good news is that hardware and model design improvements are rapidly reducing the energy required per unit of computation. The bigger questions are governance and control. Who owns these tools and the data they're trained on? Are they designed to help communities and ecosystems, or just to squeeze out more profit? Groups like the Green Economy Coalition argue that AI in nature restoration and climate action needs strong guardrails. It needs transparent methods, meaningful community involvement, and protections for sensitive environmental data. So where is all of this heading? One clear trend is more integration instead of standalone pilots. Expect to see AI systems linking across sectors. For example, flood forecasting tools will feed directly into city traffic management and public transport systems. Shipping route optimizers will connect with portside logistics and rail scheduling, and so on. When these systems talk to each other, the efficiency and emissions gains multiply. Another trend is better, cheaper sensing. As cameras, microphones, and other connected sensors get cheaper, conservation and restoration projects will be able to provide blanket monitoring. They can then use AI to turn that flood of data into real-time maps of biodiversity, ecosystem health, and threats. That could make it normal, not exceptional, to spot poaching risk, invasive species, or ecosystem collapse early enough to act. On the food side, AI-driven R&D for plant-based proteins and precision fermentation is likely to continue accelerating. This will help new companies match or beat the taste and price of conventional meat and dairy while slashing land use and emissions. There's also a lot of excitement and caution around next-generation animal communication. As AI capabilities grow, projects like the Earth Species Project and the broader research community expect to move from simple call classification toward an understanding of animal signals and contexts. It raises deep ethical questions about how humans will use that understanding, especially in commercial settings like farming, wildlife tourism, and entertainment. And finally, expect a stronger push for standards and accountability. Policymakers and civil society groups are increasingly calling for impact assessments and transparency for high-impact environmental AI. They want claims about emissions reductions or biodiversity benefits to be independently verified. Over the next decade, the tools that survive are likely to be the ones that can prove they are genuinely a net benefit, not just a clever demo. So, can AI save the planet? On its own, no. But when it's pointed at the right problems, like protecting wildlife, restoring wetlands, cutting food waste, optimizing cities, and improving early warning systems, it becomes a powerful amplifier for the work that scientists, communities, and policymakers are already doing. The challenge now is to scale the useful applications, reduce the footprint of the wasteful ones, and ensure the benefits reach the people and species that need them most. If you have any questions about this or any of our other videos, please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about the people and technologies shaping our green future, please do one thing, and it'll help us grow. Please subscribe, ring the notification bell, or give us a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.